Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. It's time for another breakfast with Blaha, and you guys already know what I'm eating. We'll skip that today. It's obviously Greek yogurt with all my stuff in it. My unhealthy, nutrient deficient breakfast. All right, let's talk about triceps. It can be a controversial topic depending upon who you ask, as you will hear a lot of power lifters who will say triceps are the key to a big bench. And you'll hear other power lifters who will say, and coaches will go, they're not, it's all pecs and delts, triceps don't matter, that's just for shirted benchers. Except that, some of the strongest raw benchers in the world prioritize triceps and tell you to do the same thing also. Just throwing that out there. Julius Maddox, anybody? What does he prioritize, by the way? Upper back and triceps. His words, not mine. Heard it in a lecture he gave with Louis Simmons. It's over an hour long. He breaks it all down for you if you want to know how he trains. A lot of ways, very West Sidey. Right? There's a lot of bodybuilder type work in there. You got to be big. You want to bench over 700 pounds raw, you better be big as hell. There is no way around it. You better be stupidly thick. Let's come over and talk about the triceps, though. Point of controversy, and here's the point people miss. And we can treat this as evidence-based. So what is it that we see with the way muscles get worked? Right? First thing to think about is going to be how much tricep is used in raw benching for longevity. Because if you bench long-term raw, you can't go real wide, can you? Shirted benchers can get away with it. Everybody tell you about raw benching who've been in the game a long time. Everyone from Matt Winning to Jim Wendler. Even I used to make videos on this 8-9 years ago. Keep that grip a little closer. Keep it inside the rings if you want longevity. What does that mean, though? That means your triceps are going to get used slightly more. This is for raw benching. Well, that's part of the problem with the theory. Well, that's just equipped. No, because if you're going to bench long term with a wide grip, and you're going to be doing it a real long time, you're going to need to bench a little closer anyways. So triceps are going to become slightly more important. Point one. Number two, look at what happens on hypertrophy studies and EMG studies when rep range changes. We look at bench pressing versus extensions and things like that. All right, studies looking at hypertrophy that actually compare benching to extensions to benching plus extension, so on and so forth. Bench press grows the triceps. When used with hypertrophy type reps, yeah, it grows the triceps. It doesn't grow the triceps as much as the pecs and the front delts, though. They grow faster. Okay? You add extensions to it, even for novices, and we get better growth. In some studies, they only cared about this in detail. Been some others that didn't find any growth from adding arm work to any big movement. A little harder to reconcile all of that. But when we look at the ones that literally broke down individual EMG, not EMG, but hypertrophy of individual muscles in the different groups, they found that. The extensions caused more tricep growth than benching does. Okay? Fact. Here's what we find on muscle activation, though, as the weight goes up on the bar. The heavier we get, again, heavier meaning relative. Heavy for you is not heavier for me. Heavy means relative to your 1 rep max. As the percentage of the max goes on the bar. In other words, 50%, 70%, 90%. As the weight gets heavier, triceps, particularly the long head of the tricep, gets used more. Gets used a lot more. Okay. Long head of the tricep for rep work at like 70%. Like if you're doing tens, a bunch of 10, three sets of 10, that's probably like 70% of your max. What people are doing for hypertrophy. There's not that much long head tricep activation. It's there, but it's not as big. You start going heavy, that activation goes way up. So what does that mean? Well, that means that, let's say you just do a bunch of bench pressing for hypertrophy. It's your main press. That hypertrophy work isn't going to grow the muscles in the same ratios that they're used on a max. It's going to grow them in the ratios they're used for tens. And it's different on the bench. Multiple studies have found this to be the case. All right, so where are we going now? We're in two directions. Number one, we're raw benching for longevity, we're going to be in closer, so a little more tricep. When we max, we use more tricep. The ratio of pec to tricep changes. Okay. Triceps always matter for a max bench. They are important no matter what. They will always contribute significantly. All right. Volume resistance. Let's come over to that one. Studies that have looked at volume studies, multiple of them have generally found that of all the muscles of the upper body, which one handles the highest volumes and continues to grow? Triceps. We have a cutoff point, right? We have studies that have looked at volume in different muscles and certain exercises that have found there's a threshold on a workout to where muscle growth goes up with volume, then it starts regressing. Triceps are further down that curve. They can handle more total volume. Okay? They can handle more total volume than your pecs and your front delts. But they get less volume and less hypertrophy from rep work on all the chest presses. They always contribute. So in other words, we have to do extra tricep work. If our goal is to get the triceps as big and as strong as possible, and they will always contribute. By the way, the contribution on a medium to close grip bench seems to be that they account for about 30% of your bench, by the way, on a max. That's a big chunk of the bench. And if you don't train your triceps, they get less stimulus even though they're capable of handling more. And here's where that capable of handling more matters. If you're not pushing any muscles remotely close to their maximum recoverable volume, or you have muscles that you are leaving gains on the table. And this is simply a muscle that even if you want to do a little bit lower volume overall for recovery, it makes sense to prioritize it because it can recover from and handle a little more volume and actually grow from it. So when you add all these factors together, it makes sense that working on your triceps will almost always increase your bench press, even if it's not a true weak link. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.